Hey, how do you feel about some high rarity cards, or maybe some foreign ones, or maybe be ahead of the game with others by preparing for future set releases with very quick shipping? Check out EJ Gaming and use code British5 on checkout for 5% off on all your orders. Link in the description.
Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. So today I'm going to do something very interesting. I'm not going to showcase you a replay of duels that I've had with my decks or strategies. Instead, I'm going to be showcasing somebody else. This is Battle 12. He is a good fellow player from the team that I am in, and we were talking about a certain particular strategy that I think a lot of people haven't caught up on, and I think it's a good idea or concept that people need to start picking up, because I think, like, moving forward, this deck is going to have a lot of potential, and it might even like do very well in this upcoming format. But yeah, without further ado, let's begin. So when Age of Overlord like started being picked up for the TCG, a lot of people like thought about the Horus engine in the Tearlaments strategy. And one of the main reasons for that was because of how well the strategy or hybrid was being done in the OCG. However, like there were a lot of things that people didn't pick up on when it came to like the Horus engine in general. One of the big things is that when Chaos Ruler was legal in the OCG, like the Horus cards were a lot better, because Chaos Ruler being able to excavate 5 and being able to like pick up like Imseti from among the milled cards was going to make the engine more consistent. Another thing that people didn't take like into consideration is the fact that yes, vampire, like the zombie vampire was good in the Horus engine as a whole. However, like if you're playing a minimalistic Horus package, you're going to have a lot of struggles. You're just going to end up getting bricks in your hand. You're super reliant on Inseti as being the part of the card that you like want to see in your opening hand. And yeah, like at the end of the day, it just didn't like pan out well. And a lot of people like figured it out after a lot of testing, and they figured out that there were a lot of potholes when it came to the Horus engine that really just didn't fix anything that the Tearlament deck already had, like to bolster the strategy. So what I'm showcasing now is like this is another variant. This variant also picked up in the OCG, and Chaos Ruler was also a catalyst for this version. However, I feel like even without Chaos Ruler, this version is a lot better. This version does a lot of things, and like I guess I'll pause the game and I'll explain it for a second. If you've been watching the game by now, you probably already noticed this is Tearlament deck based around Visas Samsara or Visas Starfrost. I guess you can call it Visas Tearlament or like Samsara Tearlament. I'm still figuring out like the deck name. However, like I feel this engine is way better than the Horus engine. I think a lot of people haven't caught up on this yet. If you're familiar with the Scareclaw deck, because I've showcased Scareclaw back in the past, and you're familiar with Mannadium, like, I mean, we're already seeing Mannadium as the opposing deck, like, faced on the other side. You already know how strong the Scareclaw engine is, like, involving Reichheart, Lightheart, Arrival, and the Vicious Astrolaud. So, what Visa Samsara does, I guess I'll read over the card. I already made a video talking about this, like in the Mannadium deck, like bolstering a video. But we're going to read it together again. Basically, TLDR, this card's name is Visa Starfrost. You can special this from your hand by just shuffling back other Visas. So if you have other Samsaras, you can just shuffle them back. Just to give you an example. if this card is used as a synchro material and the other one is a tuner, you can treat this as a non-tuner. So what's important about this card is, one, it's Visa Starfrost. Two, it has 1521. And three, it's a level 4 monster. Why is everything so important with this card? So for starters, it means that Tearlaments Scream, as well as Scareclaw Arrival, and all the other cards that just work around Visas, works around Samsara. So in a dedicated Tearlament deck, Samsara actually helps you with your strategy because it can help you like be used for like other cards, like for example Tearlaments Scream, Tearlaments Grief, like just to name one or two examples. Another really cool thing about Samsara that really helps Tearlaments is that it gives you a way to play the game despite getting Abyss Dweller. One problem that Tearlaments have, like usually, is when they use like really powerful anti-graveyard cards against you, and you just don't have a way to play the game because all those cards that are just centralized and focused around hitting your graveyard are just going to stop your Tearlament plays. Another really strong thing about this engine is like it's a one card engine that gets you the ability to mill cards, but it also gets you to this card right here, which is the Diabellantis. So for those who don't know, this is a TCG exclusive that came out in Photon Hypernova, and this card can just dump any insect monster, and the insects that you're playing are Gokipole, and the other one is Fusion Parasite. Fusion Parasite is basically a bootleg King of the Swamp. What makes Parasite a lot more interesting is that if you open Samsara, you can use the Fusion Parasite as a material to just fuse into other monsters via its effects. And you can do that by just enabling cross ship as part of your like strategy before summoning the Astrolaud. Another really cool thing is that Astrolaud existing is really strong in the Tearlament deck because in the off chance you just mill multiple Samsaras, or you mill Samsara plus Visas, or you mill Samsara with a 1521 like Rhino Heart or Reichheart, you can just banish them from the graveyard to just summon Astrolaud, and that cannot be stopped by a Abyss Dweller, that cannot be stopped like by things that just stop F graveyard effect, because it's just an inbuilt special summon that just needs the material getting banished. Another really cool thing is that this engine is recyclable. Like the Visas Samsara can just put back the Visas clones back to the deck, and you can fuse away Astrolaud with a tier name into either Mud Dragon of the Swamp or Dragostapelia, meaning that you have a recursive engine that you can just keep doing on later turns, and that's really strong in the grind game. Like Astrolaud is already a really powerful card in itself, and the best part about it is like this engine does not really conflict with what you're doing in Tearlaments. Like you might have a few bad mills, like milling. You don't want to mill like Rayphobia, for example. But like milling Reichheart is not the worst thing in the world. Milling Samsara is not the worst thing in the world either. Milling Arrival means that your Lightheart can be protected. Like not entirely, but it also not the worst thing in the world. You have the Ichizu cards that can just put back stuff from your engine if you end up milling them. Like, and overall it's just like feels like very natural and streamlined. The Visas Samsara also works with Soliek. Like, and yeah, this is like one example that we're seeing right now. Like, we're using a Shifu Shuffler, we're just grabbing back the Kashtira, and yeah, like this deck just feels very smooth and natural as what it does. Like as you can see right there, the Dragostapelia got summoned. So I guess we can talk about SP Little Knight, since I don't think I've showcased enough duels where this card is interacting. This card is going to be everywhere in the format now. So, like, whichever strategy you decide to play or pick up, just be wary of this card, because this card can outright just win the duel to some people that are just summoning it. So with that, we'll just proceed. So this is one misplay that Battle 12 did, um, like earlier in the turn, like attacking Meek while the Calarium is up. Like just be wary of this play whenever it happens. And now you see what I was talking about. Basically, he made Dragostapelia earlier in the turn, which means the Estrada is back in the Estra deck, meaning that you can just banish 2 Samsaras and just resummon back Astrolaud. And the Astrolaud made it so it can pop the tier cache, and the tier cache just milled 2 cards. So there's actually more synergy in this deck than like it seems like in the naked eye, just by interacting with all the cards. Now you see the Merly being used, all the names are back, Kaleido Heart's being summoned, and then Perlareno gets summoned. And as you will see with this duel, like right here, you're gonna see that Battle 12 is just amassing a lot of card advantage over the opponent. Now this is like the game 3, and game 3, like the Mannadium player is going first. And this is one more thing I'm going to showcase before doing like actual commentary. Watch how he is doing tier cache on his turn, like banishing the Soliak. So he hits Kelbeck, and don't worry, it gets crazier. Not only did it hit Kelbeck, it also hit with the Kelbeck effect, it hit the Golkipol and the Agido. And now it's just going to get a lot more crazier because the tier cache also milled. So it was 8 cards in total that got milled out of this. So yeah, like now there's a lot of advantage like being snowballed as if it was like the regular tier deck. Like just because there was a lot of cards that are not typical in a tier deck, like the Visas cards, doesn't mean that this deck does not function as a regular tier deck. So like it's just as powerful as the tier decks that we've already seen in the past. The opponent Trivikarmas, the reason he does that is because already 2 Calarions got milled and he doesn't want to lose the third one. He grabs Mothman, he mills 5 more, and now we see that both Samsara and Rykard are milled. So now whenever he wants, he can just banish these both and just summon the Astrolaud. And that's really, really strong because now the opponent has a lot more things to worry about than just the tier monsters whenever like you're trying to focus on like aiming for the graveyard. Like one DD Crow or one Bestial is not going to like get rid of all these cards. Like they have the sharpness to be worried about. They have the sharing to be worried about. These 2 monsters just become Astrolaud. The Trivikarma is just going to grab them another card, like Rhyphobia, for example, or another copy of Perlarino. Rhyphobia is already in the hand, so they can grab like Scareclaw Arrival, just to name one example. So, yeah. Like, this is just a lot of rolling advantage, and this is something that you just have to focus on whenever you're playing against the Tearlaments deck. Like these 2 cards existing, just going to make any tier deck just very, very powerful, no matter what version they're playing. We already know that both these cards got forbidden in the OCG, and the main reason for that is because like those cards are just really, really powerful. And like there's a lot of stuff that you just cannot predicate upon. So yeah, now Dragostapelia is being summoned. He activates the Calarium. Calarium summons the Realm Heart. Now we have to focus on Imaginings. Druid Swarm gets summoned. This is what I was talking about. Like with the Druid Swarm, he banished the Samsara. But he didn't banish the Rykard, and that's probably going to be problematic in the future. Like they only banished one Samsara. This list is also playing the original Visa Starfrost, so like the odds of them milling other copies of them are like granted. Another thing is he has Rayphobia in his hand, so that can also grab Visas Starfrost. So now he's doing the typical Mannadium plays. He's summoning the Crimson Dragon. He's summoning this batter. He's summoning the Lightheart. He's activating Rayphobia. And yeah, like as you can see here, Samsara, reframing, resummon. And so looking at this board, Battle 12, in order to win this duel, has to resolve the talents. So in a typical scenario, when you face Mannadium, you see a board like this one, and it's really, really hard to break. It's almost outright, almost impossible to like win. However, a lot of cards were milled, and out of those cards that got milled, one of them was the right card. And not only that, the tier player, like Battle 12, has a 7-card hand is in his opening play because he plussed out of the Scream and he plussed out of like the Goki Pole. Just to like name a few things that happened. And he also like resolved the Trim Karma. So now what we're going to see is how can Battle 12 break apart the Mannadium board. He activates Nessie, he ended up milling Mudora, he now activates Mothman. The Mothman itself got hit. We hit the Soliac. Soliac activates for Rhinoheart. We summon Rhinoheart. Rhinoheart effect. Now we activate Halfness. He's using his first negate on the Halfness effect, which I do think is correct. I feel like if you're facing any Tearlament deck, your main goal in the way you should be using your negations are on the tier names. Like if you stop them from using the tier names, that means they have to rely on other engines, and this is where like the Visas engine just comes in and just becomes significantly more powerful. Like in a typical tier deck, if you don't mill your tier cards, you don't have a plan B. You don't have like another alternate win condition that can just vomit and summon a bunch of monsters that you can use to your advantage. But in this version, you have the Visas engine, and like if you've seen my Scareclaw decks in the past and you've seen like what the Mannadium deck can do, you already know how powerful Visas Starfrost is. And yeah, you're about to see it in a second. So he activates Visas, popping the Rhinoheart. Rhinoheart tries to get summoned. You try to remove for the tier cache. Now we do Sharon and Halfness. No, Sharon is trying to trigger. He lets it go through, and that's another misplay I think Maniac did. I think Maniac should have just negated the tier name, because just giving them at least one fusion monster is just going to be more problematic, especially if it's something like Kaleido Heart. Now he has to focus on the Kaleido Heart, and the Kaleido Heart can be a disruption, and it can float, and it can recur more advantage. So that's going to eat at least one or more 2 negates. He uses the Baron the Floor on the Kaleido Heart, which is again part of his misplay. If he would have just negated the Sharon, he wouldn't be in this position. Now he wasted 1 Omni Negate. The only Omni Negate that was left is the Reframing. And the only other interruption that he has left to worry about would be the IP turning into SP. So that being said, Kaleido Heart triggers with dumping Merly. Now Mud Dragon is being summoned, and now Mud Dragon is going to become an issue, because with Mud Dragon on the board, he can just try to protect a few of his cards, meaning that SP Little Knight is going to be having a lot of legroom troubles. That being said, he changed the Mud Dragon, calling Dark, realizing that, and now SP Little Knight is summoned. He tries to banish the Rayphobia. It's important to banish the Rayphobia here because the Rayphobia was going to threaten the Reframing. And like Maniac knows that the Reframing is the last line of defense that he needs to have for whatever other play Battle 12 does. And now we go with Lightheart. The Lightheart is not going to add Rayphobia because there's only 1 copy in the deck, at least in this build. He wants to summon Reinhardt, but he wants to have as much card advantage as possible. Take note that this is like pre-AGOV testing. That's why you see like a few like returning plays from both sides. So now he's Mudoras to put back a few of their cards. And now the right card is going to trigger, and this is just becomes like rolling card advantage. He tries to SP, but however, the Mud Dragon called Dark, and the way this works is Maniac cannot target any dark monster. That includes his own monsters. So if he wants to use SP Little Knight on the Tearlaments Cash Tira, he needs to banish either the Samsara or the Baron the Floor. That being said, Arrival's being added, Droplets has been drawn. Now SP is being summoned, SP contests against the Reframing. Now we grab Habness. The Habness was already being used, and now with all lines of interruption gone, now he can use the Talents, and the Talents is pretty much going to win them in the duel. Personally, I think he should have just taken Chaos Angel, because if you take away the Chaos Angel, none of these guys are unaffected anymore, meaning that you can just steamroll advantage over them. Also, it is the biggest body besides like the Dissipator. However, he does have Forbidden Droplets in his hand, and like his game plan is probably going to be using the Droplets to negate the Chaos Angel. That being said, he makes Cross Cheap, he summons Astraloud to pop, he summons the Mothman with the Cross Cheap, he goes into Sprint. The reason he's summoning Sprint right here is not to dump Merly, it is for whenever he XYZ summons, he can just use the Sprint effect to just bounce back something. He makes Redoer, but he's going to take it back in a second. Yeah, instead what he's going to do is he's going to summon Diabellantis. Diabellantis is going to dump the Fusion Parasite, like I mentioned earlier. And now he's going to make Vampire. And now what's going to happen, he's going to use Sprint effect to bounce with the Vampire. Now he's going to mill with the Vampire effect. The Vampire gives him the Druid's Worm. Now he'll activate Scream, he activates the Samsara, and in the damage step he's going to use Droplets. And this is going to be lethal. The reason it's going to be lethal is because Kaleido Heart is gaining 500 out of Pearl Rhino. It's gaining 700 because of Cross Cheap. All his monsters are have 500 less because of Tearlaments Scream. And now adding to the minus 500, all his monsters are halved. Granted, he is losing 100 because of Rayphobia, but that surplus is just way too much to like mitigate the difference. So yeah, this is pretty much like the end of the duel. Like he pretty much makes the math for him. This is over 8k, and yeah, that's the end of the duel. So the pretty much as the conclusion goes that I think this is a Tearlament version that a lot of people have not figured out yet. I think that this is a lot better than the Horus version, where a lot of people were testing like before AGOV release, and it's just a matter of time until you see this deck. There was a hybrid of this version back in the past. It was called like the Scareclaw Tearlament deck. But that version like didn't pick up a lot because there were not many enough cards that just circumvented the strategy. However, now more so, this version is a lot more stronger. It has a lot more tools. It loses to less cards than the typical Tearlament deck does, and it has just a higher engine. Like it has a way higher ceiling. But yeah, that's it from me. I hope you found this video informative. I hope you found this to your understanding. Keep practicing and keep dueling.